Alright, welcome back to the Supercoach Nuff channel. In this video we're going to look at the team list for round 5, multicultural round, as you can see on the NRL website. I guess as usual we kick off about 10 minutes early so we can have a bit of a look at the Sportsdeck Dream Team as well. But just before we do, just a quick shout out to everyone out there in YouTube land. Ticked over to 600 subscribers today, which is pretty cool. Especially considering how bad things are going in Supercoach, and I've named the channel after it. I thought a few people might jump off the Pretender channel, but appreciate all the support. So I just wanted to big up myself a bit, but mostly you guys for getting around it. It's muchly appreciated. But as we said, we look at the Dream Team results. And another great week for us. Obviously, at least one format is doing well, that being the Dream Team, which admittedly not a lot of people play. But another week in the top 1% of the round with a 1044, which has seen me move up into 110th overall. So don't think I've ever been this high in any of these sorts of competitions before. Maybe like way back when in Supercoach, the year I finished about 300th would have been top 1%, but top 3% is pretty awesome at the moment. So the team, the hookers continuing to do well with the cheap options. Mamazelis with a 54 and Pakes with a 59. So making some good coin from their starting prices. The front row's been fantastic. Payne Haas is our captain with 81. Not to be outdone by Terrell May, who cracked a 92, and even Corey Horsburgh with a 50 was decent enough. The second row, so Isaiah Yeo with 57, probably wasn't worth the 900k starting price, but set and forget. Nafahu White continues to be awesome with a 69 point return this week. Matty Nicholson with 29 was a little bit under what we had been getting from him, but he's not going to score massive every week. Mitch Barnett with a 45 continues to be solid without being spectacular. Fini Fuiaki with just the 21. And Hubner will be back from his suspension this week. And then I don't know what actually happened here. So I'm pretty lucky to get such a good score considering I forgot to actually trade Cleary out. For whatever reason I had him in the team even though he wasn't playing. So that worked out alright, I suppose. I guess with the flex, I just basically got everyone else's score. So the flex saved me this week a bit. Metcalf with 55 was quite good. Hines with 53 is a solid score. Shibasaki with 70, so I didn't play him in Supercoach. I don't even own him in Fantasy. So it was good to get his score. A bit like Ruben Garrick the other week, getting his monster score. Tamale with 60 has been awesome. And with the news that Albert Hopewadi has done an ACL in New South Wales Cup, pretty much he's got a permanent spot there. So missed out in Fantasy, but do have him in these other formats, and we'll be keeping him for a good while. Jackson Purdue, another good score this week with a 40. Rob Toyer with a 30. And then Ruben Garrick with a 52. Jaden Campbell with 65 is proven to be a keeper in this format at wing fullback there. Iongi continuing to sort of struggle despite looking like there's something about to go big there with a 24. Ponga obviously on the bye. Toa with the 66, so he's been crushing it as well. And Humphreys in the flex with the 48 this week, so averaging 65, can't ask for too much more than that. In terms of the head-to-head this week, so a good win over the Rabbits with an 891 for Lockie's team this week. So Big Tino in the side with a 38. So VC'd Haas. So that was a smart move to take that. Hetherington with just 18. Glad I've got rid of him. Absolute plotter. I've got Tui Pilotu in Supercoach. Perhaps with the 50 is not the worst result given how wet and miserable it was there on Saturday Arvo at Cogra. But other than that, a lot of the players we've already got. So, the difference makers were clearly the likes of like Campbell with the 65. Well, I guess you just compare across. It was like other than Haas, you know, pretty much everyone was outpointed. Nicholson and Paps probably doesn't line up there, but swap Nicholson with say Pakes and just covered across the board there. So yeah, comfortably number one in the league this week. Two, Hull White Star continues to go well with a 936. So I'll just give Oliver a quick shout out. So played Shibasaki this week and Tamale. Arthur's with 25, Munster with 28 was a bit low. Starling with 43 is doing alright. Played Sandon Smith for the 17, which isn't ideal, but has Terrell May, who scored awesome. So yeah, nice stuff. Other players that scored well in this format this week, not Adam Reynolds, it's sorted by overall points. Let's fix that up. Any fear? There we go. So Jacob Preston top scored with a 94. He's one I've considered bringing in this week. I may even do it, but he does have the bye next week, so we just need to be mindful of that and sort of forward thinking through our trades a bit. Haas and May, hopefully most people have them, about 50% each. Jake Clifford looked pretty good, 79, inspiring the Cowboys to a win. Only 4 people own him currently, so well done if you're one of those 4. Bronson Cherry was 77, looked quite good. Interestingly, only at wing fullback. So I guess because they do sort of take a lot of the positioning from Supercoach, but they use more of the NRL fantasy type positioning, can create a bit of an awkward issue where centres and wing fullbacks are crossed over a little bit. Fanua Blake has been pretty good. Probably the unspoken about one in the front row with Haas, May, Big Tino going off to start the year. So looks the goods, averaging 60. Alex Safar scored well with the 70-point return this week. So yeah, sort of boosting his average up there nicely. Shibasaki, Nafahu, White we've talked about. So having 4 of the top 10 this week definitely helps your score. Jack Cole with 68, obviously stepping up with the halves crisis there at the Panthers. Cam McInnes with the 66, so super consistent there. Fanua Bole 66, I know he scored well in Supercoach as well. Stafford Toa Campbell we've looked at. Tarpany and Lindsay Smith, so lots of front rowers doing the business this year. It's a year of the front rower. Glad I've gone pretty top heavy this year in that sense. Although it hasn't worked out in Supercoach, so go figure. Lehigh Hopewadi obviously filling in for Turbo, went alright with 60. Did get a bit of feedback that he has got a tough draw coming up, so don't know if I'm all in on Lehigh like I was 24 hours ago. But that's okay. In terms of break-evens, we've got Sam Rani still on top, but probably needs an injury to get a game. Shibasaki basically resetting his break-even with a 70, so negative 24. Purdue's kicked off his cash gen. Kent will be one to see if he gets a run this week, but even then, his price won't move for another week. Hubner's back this week, so if you're not on him, he could be the downgrade in the forwards this week. Jenkins, I think, is the number one target, given his price is basically bottom dollar, which is interesting considering he has played in the past. And didn't even get like the sort of 212 that a few others did. Dean Hawkins probably only has a couple more weeks before Moses comes back, so could be an interesting pod if you're looking for a short-term hit, but I'm probably looking a bit more long-term at the moment. Hamish Stewart, sounds like the facial injury isn't as bad as first thought, so could even get a run again this week. Bronson Cherry, as we talked about, scored well. Nice little negative break even. Docker Clay played 80 minutes and scored 53, so well done if you're on him. Dylan Egan's probably the target for next week. Bottom dollar cheapie in the second row. Nice 43 to kick off his scoring in the NRL. Other than that, maybe Robert Derby this week if you've already got Jenkins. So it's almost 3 o'clock, so I guess probably have a look at the moves for this week. And being in a pretty strong position, I don't think we need to do too much too crazy. The obvious trade in is Jenkins. And some people might say, well, the obvious trade out there is Iongi because the rest are all keepers or, got really good break evens at the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trade out Sandon Smith. He's made a bit of money, but a little bit inconsistent in the scoring. And what I can do is I can push Humphreys up into the flex, Campbell back into the flex. Sorry, Humphreys up into the halves, Campbell back into the flex, and then we can plug Jenkins in there. So then obviously we can use Campbell to cover the halves or the wing fullback as we need to. So let's confirm that. So one trade is probably all we need to do at the moment, but we do have a bit of cash in the bank. So is it worthwhile using the second trade to upgrade? If we go to break evens real quick, so the hookers are still making some money, so they are a target to upgrade. Having a keeper hooker in this position would be a bit nicer, but while they're still going good, I'm happy to leave them. Front row is sorted, no stress there. Second row, so I think Finifuiaki is one that we could potentially move on, but we do have Egan coming in next week, so we could save that. We might need to move on Nicholson next week as well, so do we wait next week to do 2 or do we go 1 up now? And then in the backs, Shibasaki, Purdue, Tamale, all good break evens. Rob Toyer, I think he just needs one more big game and his cash gen will go off again, and he's got the talent, so I'm backing him in. Iongi's still got a 7 break even, so he's just slow burning, and I think if I can wait a couple more weeks, Mitch Moses comes back in and he starts to increase his output. When everyone else is shifted off, he becomes a bit of a pod play then. So, I think the only place I really want to trade is the second row. So if we were to trade Finifuiaki out, the two options are obviously Preston, who, as we said, does have a bye next week. The other option, and this is potentially preparing for a trade in at hooker, is looking at Cam McInnes. So if I just put Finifuiaki back for a second and flick to looking at the hookers, and we'll go by average because some have missed a week or two, but you can see McInnes currently sits as the 3rd highest averaging hooker. So with Connor Watson obviously playing big minutes there at the Roosters, so there's a potential you could use both of them, one in the second row, one in the hooker, and have a bit of extra flexibility and cover. Wade Egan's obviously on the bye this week, so you wouldn't rush to get him in. But also I guess you look at like a Harry Grant with an average of 34, he must be sinking in price, like a 93 break even. He's that sort of upside player we could try and get a bit later. Api Coruscant is another one I like as the sort of second hooker keeper option. So I just got to look at McInnes' draw. I'm not overly familiar with the Sharks' upcoming run. So it looks like they play right through till round 13. So that includes the round 12 Origin week. So I think I'm going a bit of Cam McInnes in my second row. Fantastic. So I guess, with those trades locked in now, we just set up the team. So I'm going to push Barnett up into the front row bench. Just these two guys can sit there proudly. Two hookers can play this week. Cam McInnes has got to play, doesn't he, this week? Well, actually, is it going to be these three guys? In which case, Isaiah Yeo, which seems a bit weird, and Nafari White, because they all play on Thursday night, so we can lock them away, play those two. So we can swap Humphreys in, and then swap Ponga with Ongi. So just then the centres. So I think I'm happy to play Tamale Thursday night. Shibasaki against the Tigers. I don't hate that fixture for him. Toya's against Souths. Purdue's against the Panthers. No, so I think that's going to be the way to go. So Hines and Cleary play nice and early. So we probably can keep the VC on Cleary against the Cowboys. You know, they did look okay against the Raiders. Obviously got the win, but they did have the preferred conditions, and I think the Panthers will look to bounce back with Cleary back in the team. So VC Cleary, captain, one of these guys. I'm just going to stick with Haas, but you can go whichever way you like. And yeah, that's going to be the dream team going into round 5. So I've probably gone a little bit over time with that, but that's okay because the team lists are definitely up and running. Can see Latrell's back, Cleary, Thompson, Connor Watson. So there's usually some clues with the pitches they use. So let's have a look. Raiders Sharks first up. So all those players we just talked about lined up to play. That's fine. So Smithies comes back on the bench for Trey Mooney. So Horsburgh staying at 13. Don't hate that against the Sharks. I guess with the Sharks, Kale Iro was out. Here's one I was sort of toying with as a pod centre wing, but has gone down with a hamstring. So he might just sit in the back pocket for a few weeks. Hiroti comes in. Haven't looked at his price, but wouldn't suggest he's overly relevant. Forward pack looks the same as usual, so some good signs there. Oh, no, Talakai. But who comes on the bench? How Tapua, I think, comes on the bench. No, Tom Hazelton's back. That's the difference there. Panthers, Cowboys. So Nathan Cleary named to come back. Dane Laurie named at fullback, so no Dylan Edwards yet. No, Dylan Edwards still a week away, at least. And the forwards, nothing stands out there. Maybe Brad Schneider in the 14 is interesting. So I guess with no Trent Tolau, he might be the last one standing. Although Blaze Talangi still not in the 17, which is interesting. For the Cows, so Robert Derby still there. So if you do want to bring him in as a on the bubble in Supercoach, I think Jenkins is better. But if you went early on Jenkins, yeah, he'd be the next option. Other than that, doesn't appear to be much difference there. Don't change a winning team, I suppose. Roosters and Rabbitohs. So there was a bit of chat about this, and Latrell Mitchell named in the centres. So a bit filthy. I traded out Jai Gray in the draft league. Might have to see if I can get him back in. But that's massive news. So definitely changes a couple of things for particularly Supercoach. And I guess, fantasy as well if you're looking at him in that format. But yeah, very interesting. So Hubner named back in the 13, which is good signs for him and people like me that own him in all three formats. For the Roosters, Connor Watson named back at 9. Nat Butcher named in the 13. Don't know if that was what happened last week. But that's starting to look pretty full strength. Lindsay Collins promoted back to the starting lineup. So not sure who else they're missing with injury. Obviously Victor Radley. yeah, so I think we're getting pretty close to seeing where that all lies. So good news for Nafahu White. Siwa Wong, if you've still got him, I think good signs that he's still on the edge with Butcher playing through the middle. Fantastic. Um, Eels and Dragons. So for the Eels, no change to the back line. Doesn't look like any changes. Dylan Walker in the 14 would be a new play. Oh, actually, big news. I've just realised Riley Smith named to start, and they haven't gone with Hands or a Lussick on the bench. So the slow burn in fantasy might pay off. Don't know if he's super coach relevant, given the other hookers are all going good, but yeah, I'm glad I've picked him up in fantasy. This is exactly how I hoped it would play out. For the Dragons, don't see anything out of the unusual. So Hamish Stewart named on the bench. Blake Laurie named. So who's he in for? There was an injury, wasn't there? Emre Gula, no, suspension, that's what it was. So I think that's why I like Egan in fantasy as well. Is he's guaranteed a couple of games you'd think with Gula out. But the fact he covers the edge as well, like he played a bit on the edge for Leilua, might mean he has a longer runway in the team too, which is nice. Titans, Dolphins, so De Groot named at fullback again. Supercoach watch. Other than that, Sean Mullaney, have no idea who that is. I'm about to find out, possibly. So utility, 25 years old. Congratulations on the debut, mate. I don't know if it's worth a look, but we'll definitely suss out some stats. Bottom dollar cheapie, no doubt. For the Dolphins, backline looks the same. Lemuelu named to start on the edge with Tom Gilbert out for a week. So Max Plath moving to 13. So that's pretty juicy for Psychoplath owners. But yeah, that looks like about the only change. Bench looks the same. So yeah, Lemuelu straight in. Broncos, Tigers. Not expecting too much change from the Bronx. Piakura in for Ricky was predicted. So Jaden Hunt comes in on the bench, covering that spot. And for the Tigers, so Lee, I think is how you say that. So still no Jarrell Skelton, not even in the 22. So do I bin him potentially from my super coach team? Fino in for Jerome Luai, who I forget what's he out for again? Suspension. Yeah, one gamer. That's right. So Fino is probably not that relevant. Forward pack looks same as usual. Jack Bird back to the bench. So yeah, it was so weird having Talon De Silva and Latu Fino on the bench for them last week. But don't know, maybe that cost them the win. Who knows? Seagulls and Storm. Is this the last game or is there one more? Oh, that's right, the Dogs. How could I forget? So Lehigh Hopewadi named at fullback. Falalo on the wing, as expected. Nathan Brown elevated to the starting team, I think, for Paseka. Or was that... No, Aloye. Sorry, that's right. Toff Sipley joining the bench. And for the Storm, still no Jerome Hughes. Although he's in the extended bench, so one to keep an eye on in the late mail. Not that I think Tyron Wishart was that fantasy relevant, but it may help Pappenhausen get the goal kicking back if Hughes slots in. So probably relevant by association there. Big or little Pappy, I should say. But yeah, not too much different there from the Storm. And the Bulldogs and Knights. So the Dogs looks like business as usual there. No Satili Tupanua, so Curtis Morin comes in on the bench. But other than that, pretty much what we expected. And the Knights off the bye, so the back line looks the same. So Cant gets a second run. I think he's about 500k in fantasy, so probably not worth worrying about. But definitely a more of a look in Supercoach. But keeping in mind that Kai Pearce-Paul does come back next week, so whether it's Frizzell or Cant that makes way. And also, I think Dylan Lucas, there's reports he's not that far off either. So definitely a watch. Leo Thompson back is good news for the Knights. Good news for the Dogs getting him next year as well, but they won't want to play him this week. Jermaine McEwen, is he a debutant? What's the story there? No, he must have played. I don't even recognise that name. So I'll see how he did last week or 2 weeks ago because he was on the bye. But yeah, a new name there for my list. Yeah, so I guess some interesting moves. I guess the Super Coach relevant ones. I think Lehigh Hopewadi is still relevant, even though he does have the Storm. He does have a couple of games against the Sharks coming up, and I think a bye in there as well in the near future. But definitely one to consider. Couple of sort of short-term moves. De Groot's a watch. Riley Smith is interesting. But yeah, Latrell Mitchell's probably the big news, playing in the centres. So also with Jack White, and who plays left centre? They're both left-sided players. It might be a hybrid type thing where Mitchell floats side to side like a second fullback almost. Jai Gray just plays exclusively down the right or something. It's an interesting watch. Jenkins, cheapie of the week in Supercoach, get on. Yeah, that probably covers the main highlights. So we'll wrap the video up there. Went a little bit longer than anticipated, but it is what it is. So thanks very much for getting involved. As I said earlier, obviously if you've got any questions, comments, thoughts, feel free to add them below this video. Give us a like if you enjoy the team lists review, as well as the sports deck, obviously. Subscribe, join the 600 faithful that get around all the fantasy sports content on the channel. And other than that, we'll catch you in the next one.